supporting these margins. U.S. Total motor vehicle gasoline production supply is up to 2.9% through the first 5 months of 15. Trade reports indicate that demand is also tightening in major world markets such as Europe and India so far this year compared with 2014. Much of the refinery output is reaching global markets, as net reports 19% higher there. The weekly refinery marginalization reports here, despite undergoing unplanned output. ExxonMobil, the refinery in Torrance, California, and this was one of those. Utilization on the West Coast exceeded 90% for the first 3 weeks, marking the third, and fourth time that all 5 regional regions have recorded refinery utilization, allowing 90% within the same week. There has led to record higher inputs. Monthly data of utilization rates go back further, and the low of all regions exceeds 90% in the month of September. U.S. refineries tend to peak in the second and third quarter of the year, when demand for gasoline is the greatest because of increased driving, what's called a summer driving season, and that is coming to a closure. Estimates that refinery runs will average 16.7 billion from April through September, then decline slightly in Q4 to 16.2 billion before falling further to 15.8 in Q1 of 2016. So that is basically the position there. Very, very tight markets there. In monthly, Gulf Coast crank spreads related to light Louisiana sweet crude. So if we start looking at that point, what is that? $0.6 per barrel. Let's see what are we looking at here. Okay, margins here, and this is where the margins are. And what are the margins in gasoline at about 60% there for gasoline. So it does it there, and we'll try one more time. For the commodity futures people that were releasing their report, and for some reason it is slipping around us. It was supposed to be released, and we don't see it on there unless this is no, not the weekly swap. Well, we'll see. No, not it. Anyway, we will move on to the U.S. Jobs report here finally, and we'll get it up here as we move down. The employment situation in July. This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and on August the 7th, the non-farm payroll increased by 215,000 jobs in July. The unemployment rate was unchanged at 5.3%. Job gains occurred in retail, trade, health care professionals, and technical service, financial services. Diving in. This is the household survey here. The rate, we've got that held at 5.3%. Number of unemployed workers at 8.3 million. Of course, it was unchanged over the year. The unemployment rate and number of unemployment people, workers were down 0.9% and 1.4 million respectively. Among major working groups, unemployment rate for teenagers declined, and one of the presidential candidates, Bernie Sanders, talks about this, to 16.2% in July. The rate for adult men 4.8% adult women, 4.9%. For whites, that's 4.6%. African Americans, 9.1%, definitely too high. Asians, 4%. Latinos, 6.8% showed a little change in those groupings. Let us move on here. New entrants among the unemployed, a number of new entrants, and this is something new, 107,000 in July. New entrants are unemployed persons who never previously worked. The long-term unemployed, those jobless for 27 weeks or more, was little change at 2.2 million. Those individuals accounted for 26.9% of the unemployed. Over the past 12 months, the number of long-term unemployed is down 986,000. Civilian workforce participation rate, very important. Now it is least reported at 62.6% in July, after declining 0.3% in June. The employment population ratio is at 59.3%, was unchanged. The number of part-time workers for economic reasons, referred to as involuntary part-time workers, was little changed in July at 6.3 million. In July, 1.9 million people were marginally attached to the workforce, down 251,000 for the year, not season adjusted. These individuals are not in the workforce but want and available for work. Among the marginally attached, there's 668,000 discouraged workers in July, little change from a year earlier. The remaining 1.3 million persons marginally attached to the labor force in June had not searched for work for reasons of school, etc. Now the establishment survey, non-farm payroll employment rose 215,000, compared with an average monthly gain of 246,000 over the prior months. Actually, to move out the additional slack that's out there, need to be at 300 to 350,000 per month at this rate. Employment in retail trade increased by 36,000 in July and has risen 322,000 over the year. In July, motor vehicle and parts dealers added 13,000. Employment continued to trend up in general merchandise stores, 6,000 there. Healthcare added 26,000 jobs in July and has added 439,000 jobs over the year. In July, employment rose in hospitals up 16,000. Professional technical services beginning to add people, 27,000 in July, with gains in computer design and related services, 9,000. Architecture engineering services at 6,000. Over the past 12 months, professional technical services added 301,000 jobs. Managements of companies and enterprises added 14,000 jobs, and financial activities rose by 17,000 in July and has risen 156,000 over the past 12 months. Insurance carriers, and we were just talking about Berkshire Hathaway and related activities amounted for more than half of the gain, and that's because of those increased orders at 10,000 plus and 80,000 over the year. Manufacturing edged up. It used to be it would edge down this summer. 15,000. Employment in non-durable goods rose by 23,000 over the month, including gains in food manufacturing, 9,000 there, and in plastics and rubber production, 6,000. Employment in food services and drinking places continue to trend up as they normally would do in the summer at 29,000 and has increased 379,000 over the year. In transportation and warehousing also continued to trend up, 14,000 has trended up 146,000 over the year. Employment in couriers and messages rose. Now, that's kind of interesting in the computer age, at 3,000 over the month. Mining continues to trend down. This is what hurt Berkshire Hathaway. We were talking about rig count, 5,000 down there since a record high of in December of 14. The industry has declined 78,000, with losses concentrated in service support activity. Employment in other major industries, including construction and wholesale trade information, government have shown little change there. The average work week for all workers on private non-farm payrolls edged up 1/10 hour to 37.6 in July. Manufacturing work week for all workers edged up 0.1/10 to 40.7. A little overtime built in there. Factory overtime was unchanged at 3.4 hours. The average work week for production non-supervisor workers was 33.7 to 2101. Changes in non-farm payroll in May was revised from 254,000 to 260,000, up a bit there. With these revisions, employment gains in May and June combined for 4,000 higher. Over the past 3 months, have averaged 335,000. This is something, as a place we definitely need to be. That will do it there. We'll go and do the numbers now from the BBC. And we'll take a very quick look at the rest of the news. Of course, the U.S. economy from the BBC added jobs there. We won't spend any time on that story. Brazil's inflation rate hits 12-year high. And hopefully we can get that report going here. There we go. The 12-year high. We cover Brazil rate of 9.56%. That's the official rating there. Of course, you can figure it is probably up. The country's central bank targeted inflation rate of 4.5, and has risen interest rates to 14.25, amongst the highest in the major economies to combat rising prices. High inflation is compounding the woes. According to the International Monetary Fund, the nation's economy shrinks 1.5%. Working demands for commodities, particularly from the slowing Chinese economy, is the main reason behind the slowdown. And they're raising taxes there. President Rousseff is doing that and cutting some spending. Of course, that's obviously resisted by a number of people. We'll put this on our official Twitter feed, which you will find there. And we'll quickly jump out of this and jump on to the numbers. But we couldn't leave Brazil there. UK's trade deficit widens. We have to catch that. We like to cover the UK. To £1.6 billion in June. Deficit of $9.2 billion on goods was partially offset by a $7.6 billion surplus on services. And demand in the Eurozone, concerns about manufacturing being hammered strongly by steering and flat euro. Well, the Bank of England's cautious tone in world trade. In its inflation report, total export of goods in June tallied $24.9 billion, while goods imported rose to $34.1 billion. The U.S. was the UK's biggest export market, 4.4 billion pounds, followed by Germany at 2.7 billion, and France and Netherlands, the Irish Republic, and China are the biggest export markets. UK imported goods and services worth 5.34 billion from Germany.